Mic test for Matt.
I can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Chalfie, can we do a mic check, please?
Hi, Stephanie. This is Jill. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I can, thank you.
Thanks.
So just you being here, I'm scared.
So that's all good. So I don't know if you might want that.
Councilmember Kimley, can we do a mic check,
Yes, I
please?
don't read it.
Yep, mic check.
I'll still hear it a little bit, right?
Setting.
That's what I thought. Ah, there we go. You don't want to mute me.
Mayor Disler, can we do a mic check, please?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Mayor Disler, can we do a mic check, please?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
We can barely hear you. Can we try again?
I'm not sure. I can hear you loud and clear. I'm not sure how to make myself louder.
Okay, we'll try and turn it up on our end.
We're gonna have issues from other people. We'll have to.
Okay.
She could try reconnecting one more time.
It shows my microphone volume is all the way up.
Hey, Stephanie, it's Ellis. She's very clear on
Can't hear
on
him either.
audio.
Yeah, we can barely hear you.
Ellis, I couldn't hear you very well.
The mayor is very clear and loud on the broadcast.
And Ellis,
Okay.
I can hear you, Cloud. I can hear you, Cloud. I can hear you loud and clear as well.
Same, I can
Okay.
hear you guys both really well.
Good.
And I'm at home though.
We can hear all three of you better now. We just had a different mic volume we needed to go to. So we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe I was just cloudy, like the mayor said.
I just make up words.
Hi, this is John Hanson with IRR, just requesting a mic check and sound check.
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, we are at 7 PM. Are we ready to begin?
Yep, I believe we're ready, Mayor.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the April 12th, 2021 meeting of the Shawnee City Council. I'm Mayor Michelle Disler. I'll be chairing this meeting. First, I'd like to ask how many are in attendance from the public at tonight's meeting for the record?
There are 8, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll now do a roll call. Councilmember Thomas,
Present.
Councilmember Zimmerman,
Present.
Councilmember Jenkins,
Present.
Councilmember Kimley,
Present.
Councilmember Larson Bennell,
Present.
Councilmember Nappin,
Present.
Councilmember Constance,
Present.
Councilmember Chaffee.
Present.
Thank you. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some ground rules. I want to make sure that all participants keep their devices and or microphones muted until I ask for comments. We will use the raise hand feature in Zoom so I can recognize you. Just like always, I'll ask for motions on each item. Please raise your hand and wait to be called on before stating the motion so we can get an accurate record for the minutes. Next, I'd like to go over some emergency procedures for the meeting. City Council, Council Committee meetings will continue to be held via Zoom. During the meeting, I'll offer the opportunity for public input. If you'd like to speak to the council at any of those times, please come forward to the designated microphone. I'll ask you to state your name and address for the record, then you may offer your comment so that members of the audience can hear your comments. I would ask that you speak directly into the microphone. My policy comments are limited to 5 minutes. No person may speak more than twice to any one agenda item. Only comments related to city business are permitted. Comments and remarks that are personal, impertinent, or slanderous are not permitted. Disruptive acts are not permitted. Face coverings are required when speaking into the microphone to help protect one another. After you're finished, please sign the form on the podium to ensure we have an accurate record of your name and address. And additionally, comments can be submitted to the entire governing body via email at governingbody@cityofshawnee.org. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items they would like to remove from the consent agenda? Councilmember Jenkins?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I don't know if I really need to remove it from the agenda, but I'd just like to make a comment, at least on item number 8. Would that
Okay.
be possible, or do we need to remove it?
No, you can comment.
Just want to let everybody know, I did meet with Will Walker, the owner of Old Shawnee Pizza, and he showed me all the plans and everything they had put together for this deck that he's going to put on. And what he did was he expanded the project quite a bit, made it a whole lot nicer. And so then he's overrun his time that he was supposed to have it done in. So I think we're actually looking at a better project than we had before. So I'm just going to mention that to the council if they were not necessarily aware of what the problem was here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that information. Councilmember Thomas.
I'd like to remove numbers 5 and 6 for just a little bit of clarity, please.
Okay, do you want to remove them or just have comments and questions like Councilmember?
Yeah,
Jenkins?
if I can ask a couple of questions. In looking at number 5 with the price of $68,000, it looks like I just want to understand that the things that we're buying for this amount of money, that it is the best product that's out there, and ensure that even though we're familiar with this product, because apparently we've had it since 2015, are we currently shopping and looking around to see if there's another vendor that perhaps has an equivalent or better product for less money?
Yes, I do. Good evening, Mel Bunting, the Director of Information Technology. That question, and a short answer is their pricing has not changed since the inception that we brought that product online. We've continued to negotiate with that vendor. Are there other products in the space? And yes, this product is a good product. It works in our organization. And it's my recommendation, and it's the city's recommendation as staff to bring that forward and to continue to renew that.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're using open eyes, and I'm sure you are, but when I see something we've been using since 15 and it's an IT item, that we're being proactive in getting out there, because if it was in 15, we know most things are archaic within 5 months, much less 5 years.
Correct.
So-
Correct. The real challenge that we'll have with this, at some point in time, we will move away, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it's just concepts of software and new products and features, is that it is an enterprise-wide product. Every department is using that system. And so when we look at the resources involved internal staff-wise to retool, it's a sizable lift.
Mhm.
And so sometimes we want to get the best bang out of that product, which is through the vendor, and continue to negotiate with that vendor. But at some point in time, the features outdrive that need.
Mhm.
And then we begin to look at other solutions at that point.
I guess that kind of leads me to the second one, number 6, and that's where we have an agreement for 3 years, which runs out next year.
And that's on the other product.
Right.
Yes. So what we negotiated there was a 3-year fixed rate.
Mhm.
And then we also negotiated a cap of a percentage not to increase that. So even though that product may increase in price, there's a fixed cap on percentage of what they can increase that.
Are we receiving any upgrades? Even though we're at a fixed cap, are we receiving the upgrades that may come with that?
Yeah, all the products, as an IT department, we continue with the security components that we have now, especially where they're web facing. I could go into the details of vulnerabilities and the assaults that we get as an organization to our public facing components in IT. We're continuing to make sure we're patching that equipment, that software, that hardware, to make sure we're not exposing our organization to vulnerabilities that we are not aware of, so to speak.
Okay.
Called 0 days. So.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that we're not locked into something and boy, there's something better out there, but we just can't get it. It
Yes.
would be equivalent money, because technology does get cheaper. Used to TVs were $2,200. Now you can pick them up at Walmart for $469 or whatever. So.
And we continue to look at this. We continue to have conversations about, is this the best product in the space? And the short answer is it will take us probably 18 to 24 months to move away from this.
Mhm.
So if we want to start that engagement as an organization, we need to begin that endeavor.
It's about a $300,000 investment, right? This particular contract, about $98,000 a year.
Software is a subscription, yes, on the other vendor. Yep.
Thank you.
Councilmember Thomas, does that answer your questions to move
It
forward?
did. Yep.
Consent agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will accept a motion to approve the consent
Jenkins
agenda.
moves to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is mayor's items. I have one item on tonight's agenda. Item number 1 is a COVID-19 update. We'll have various staff that will provide an update on the city's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. First, we'll have City Manager Nolan Sunderman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to start off, and we'll have a few items to discuss this evening. The first item, I will cover city operations and events update, and then I will kick it over to Emergency Services Chief Matt Epperson to provide kind of that regional local overview and those dashboards that we had talked about previously. Sean Keenan, our aquatics program manager, will provide an aquatics update, and then I'll come back and talk about the recent stimulus funding. And Lauren Grasshoff, our neighborhood planner and CDBG expert, will provide some additional information that you all requested on some of the funding that we had approved last year. So in terms of the city operations overview, operations are mostly back to normal. We are currently under the Johnson County Health Order that runs through April 30th. Within that, they have discussed kind of meeting 3 separate metrics. And so we provided an update on that. The first one being at least 50% of eligible Johnson County residents have received the first dose. Currently, it's at 29%. The number of new cases per 100,000 residents is less than 50, currently at 79. And the positivity rate remains below 5%. Currently, they're at 3.1%. So that's the Johnson County Health Order. The facilities are all open with social distancing, some enhanced cleaning, as well as physical barriers and the mask requirements per the Johnson County Health Order. Go to the next slide. Thank you. Just to provide kind of a brief overview of some of the events, we have had to cancel a number of our cherished events here in the community over the last few months, and that being the St. Patrick's Day Parade, the Duck Race, the April Craft Fair. Those were canceled. We do have a number of events that are still occurring. Excited to have our Tour de Shawnee event here first weekend of May. And that usually takes place in August. And so this year it's in May. May is also Bike Month here in the metro area. So we're excited to kind of celebrate that as well. And of course, you all know about the Moonlight Market happening on the third Thursday of the month. The first one will be May 20th. And again, we're really excited and have had a lot of great positive feedback about revamping that. Sadly, Old Shawnee Days is canceled as well. I know that's a cherished event for many in our community, and that is canceled this year, and hopefully to come back stronger next year, and things will be on track. And we also had our spring recycling event, planning to reschedule that event. We usually partner with Merriam, City of Merriam on that event, and so we'll be looking to reschedule that. And then, of course, many of you are familiar with our parked event that is hosted traditionally out at Stump Park. And so we're still in the planning stages on what that will look like. Usually that takes place, I believe, the last weekend in June, just before the 4th of July.
City Manager Sunderman, can you also just clarify that it was not the city that canceled some of those events? It was the organizations that oversee them, just so that we have clarification for the.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Record.
Yeah, so for example, the St. Patrick's Day Parade, we were working closely, with the planners of that, and, it kind of becomes a day issue in terms of not knowing if it's going to happen or not. And then kind of under the order at the time that was canceled, they were not allowing parades and fairs and festivals. And similar situation with Old Shawnee Days. We do work closely with those groups. Especially Old Shawnee Days, where things are planned out so far in advance, just became a big challenge, especially for an event like that, where so many thousands of people are in close quarters. So that's correct.
Thank you.
Yep. And so with that, I'll kick it over to Emergency Services Chief Matt Epperson. Again, just brag on him for just a minute. Appreciate all the work that he's done and continues to do, and has really been a huge assistance. And so he'll have some information to share on that as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Nolan. As I said, my name is Matt Epperson, Emergency Services Chief with the Fire Department. I guess I do want to start out with some good news. We've been continuing to monitor both at the county and the KC Metro level the trends in cases and hospitalizations, and some information here from the MARC Regional COVID-19 Data Hub. The past couple weeks have continued to show that daily new cases continue to decrease. Hospitalizations are also decreasing. The number of deaths daily is remaining about the same, but that's at about a 1 or 1.7 per day. So that rate remains low. There's a couple things to Nolan's point about the metrics that the county is using to make their determinations at the end of this month on whether or not to continue the mask mandate. And, we talked about vaccinations, and I'll talk more about that on the next slide. But we are continuing to see the availability of vaccines increase. We're getting more shots into more arms every day. And so that is fantastic news, and is one of the things that's going to help us get to the place we need to be. I do want to point out that overall testing is going down. The number of people getting tested is down. And, that's just one of those basic epidemiological things that we can do to identify some of those hotspots and outbreaks, and treat those where they occur. So that is one thing I just wanted to kind of get out there, that, please, we're encouraging people to continue to get tested if they have symptoms. Even if they're vaccinated, we still want to get them tested. So there's a number of resources out there through the county, through the state sponsored sites, which you can find at that gogettested.com/Kansas. If we go to the next slide, one thing I wanted to point out is some of those metrics and where we're at. And I think I had actually inputted it incorrectly in Nolan's slide. One of the metrics was getting 50% of the eligible population vaccinated. And as you can see here on the left side, as of last Friday, the county has actually vaccinated 37% of the eligible population. It's 21 or 29% of the total population. So I did have that backwards, but I wanted to point that out, that getting that first dose into 37% of the eligible population is a significant achievement at this point. And in Johnson County, we're at 21% that are fully immunized of that eligible population. So the numbers are going up, and again, I want to encourage everybody to get that vaccine, because at this point, the county is now at a point where they are opening this up to pretty much anybody who is 16 and over. So what I saw today is that they are saying that if you want to sign up for a vaccination, that you can go to the county site and get signed up. And there are no more restrictions as far as age or eligibilities based on your work or anything else that are going to preclude anybody from getting the vaccine at this point. I
Hey,
think,
Matt.
yeah.
I'm sorry, Councilman Jenkins has a question.
Oh, absolutely.
I only have a question and a comment. So the first question would be, this looks like quite an operation to try to collect the data, because I see that they're giving these shots everywhere. I go to Hy-Vee and they're giving shots. There's people waiting in line. And then my wife got hers done at KU Med Center, and I got mine through the county. And I mean, is there a surefire way that you're able to get all the data together so we actually know how many we have vaccinated?
So that's an interesting question. The county is doing everything they can to gather those numbers, and some of the numbers are a little bit behind. From my understanding, the CDC actually is the ultimate holder of these numbers, and they actually show that our numbers are a little bit higher than what the county does, because sometimes the county doesn't necessarily get the information if somebody who is a county resident gets vaccinated in another county or state. Sometimes those take time. So I think, if anything, those numbers are actually better than what we see here.
Yeah, that would make sense. The other thing, it was just a comment. I finished my vaccinations. I did the one out there at Oaken Gym, and then I did the other one out in off Lackman Road, at about 109th or whatever it was in Lackman. And after I finished up at Oaken, I was really just marveled at it, having spent many years with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, setting up a lot of shelters and setting up a lot of processing centers and things like that. I walked in, and within 15 minutes, they were sticking a needle in my arm. And maybe it was less than 15 minutes. The longest part of my thing was waiting the 15 minutes before you could leave. And so I got done with all that, and I recollected the fact that Johnson County got bashed pretty bad on the Oaken Gym operation earlier on. So I thought, well, I got to brainstorm. I'm going to call the Shawnee Mission Post and the Kansas City Stars. I called Sarah Ritter and I called Leah Wankin and said, hey, let's publish a story on this, because this may actually facilitate people wanting to get vaccinations. If you tell them it's hell to go get a vaccination, that may cause some people that weren't really that sure if they wanted it or not to even go through the process. Well, they weren't interested, so there was no article published. But I just wanted to let you know that I thought you guys were doing a really great job, and I know I did contact you on that one to let you know that I thought it was a really great job, but I haven't really necessarily expressed that publicly, and I wanted to do so. Those operations are extraordinarily well run, and anybody that's even considering going and getting a vaccination should definitely go ahead and go, because it's not difficult. It worked really well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Larson Bonnell has her hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say briefly, I was a part of getting a vaccine clinic up and running on the Missouri side, and I can confirm what Matt is saying and what Councilmember Jenkins alluded to. When you are registered by the federal government as a site that is eligible to give vaccinations, you have to have the ability to report to the CDC's website. And state by state, everybody did it a little bit differently. Missouri used a program called Show Me Vax, and you had to be able to connect with Show Me Vax before you did it, but then Show Me Vax connected to the CDC. So there was a similar process here in Kansas. And I think, Matt, you're absolutely right about the CDC is picking up people like me. My Missouri employer vaccinated me, and I'm sure that they noted my residence as Johnson County for the federal site. So it really is quite the operation. And there are some data delays, but really it's pretty smooth at this point.
Absolutely. And to Mr. Jenkins' point, yeah, the county got some bad press on the first day of their operation, but they course corrected very quickly. And I will say, one of the things that pushed them to move to the site in Lenexa, kind of their more permanent site, was that at Oaken Fieldhouse, every single day that they were doing vaccines, they had to go in and set up their entire operation and then tear it down that afternoon to allow for basketball games later that day. So it was a significant undertaking. And at their new site in Lenexa is their permanent site. They can leave stuff set up and go in and do it. So I can only imagine that it's even more streamlined at this point. The only other thing that I wanted to point out right now is some of the things that are going on closer to home. Now that has moved out of Oaken Fieldhouse, there is still an effort underway, and we have another partnership with the county DHE, and then I've been working with our volunteer coordinator, Elizabeth Griffith, and some volunteers to try and identify some of the homebound population in Shawnee who are not able to get out to the vaccine sites, who maybe don't have internet, so they need assistance in getting signed up to get their vaccine. And so we are working through that process right now. And in fact, I had an email today that we are trying to get it set up and work with DHE to go administer those vaccine in home for those individuals who cannot get out of the house. So, we continue to look for opportunities to provide this in innovative ways. And I want to put it out there that if you know of anybody in Shawnee who maybe doesn't have great access to the internet, who might not have the resources, and who's stuck at home, please let me know, or let Elizabeth know, so that we can make sure that we can at least reach out and see if there's something that we can do to help them get the vaccine. Other than that, I wanted to just kind of say, with everything that I've talked about, that things are going well. We're not out of the woods yet. And so I just want to stress that, it's still important to, do those things that we've been preaching for the last year of wearing your mask and social distancing and washing your hands. There's a number of states right now that are reporting pretty significant increases in their caseload and their hospitalizations. Right now, Michigan has a 45% increase in hospitalizations. Nebraska has a 66% increase in the number of cases they're seeing right now, and there's several other states. So while things are trending down in the Kansas Metro and in Johnson County, I just want to reiterate the fact that we're not completely out of it. So if we can continue doing some of those things for just a little bit longer, I think we're going to get through this sooner than later.
Just one last point of clarification. Are the numbers that you're showing us tonight, Matt, are these the Johnson County numbers, or are these the CDC?
That is correct. Those are Johnson County.
So yes, it could be better, is why I'm asking. So the numbers actually could be better than what we're seeing here.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And for the record, that was Councilmember Jenkins, and I have Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. As we encourage people to take this step and become vaccinated, are we going to be intentional about keeping data about some of the folks that do not do so well with these vaccinations. Reason I ask, my 28-year-old son and 27-year-old daughter-in-law both received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in this moment. They're very, very ill, fevers of 102. They got it last Thursday. What kind of data are we keeping on that for those folks who are contemplating getting a vaccine, but which ones are having more challenges versus the others?
I know that, for example, when I got my vaccine, you can actually sign up to do the first week. It's a daily update, and you get a text from the CDC resting. It's like a 5-question survey, just kind of asking how you're feeling and if you have any symptoms and everything. And it takes about 30 seconds to go through. So it's the first week after the vaccine, the first shot, and then like weekly after that, and then it kind of stretches out. So, a lot of that is voluntary data that is being reported to the CDC. So I know there is data being kept, along those lines, but I don't have a better answer than that for you right now.
Okay. It just seems like something that would be good to have. And everybody responds differently, but when we know there are challenges with some of these vaccines, and we're, on the other hand, encouraging people to go do that, perhaps offering the information that, 6% or 2% or however many percent it is of the folks have had challenges with those. Even if it's 3 days, 2 days, a week, whatever,
Right.
That would just be helpful.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I don't have any other hands, Matt, so.
Okay, I think that was all I have for tonight.
Oh, sorry, Councilmember Nappin's hand just went up. Sorry.
I didn't know if he was the last speaker or not, providing an update. No, just comment real quick. So I'm disappointed about old Shawnee days, but really proud of the fact that our city's been able to keep all of our facilities essentially up and running throughout this entire thing. I'm excited, really excited that we have a plan to open the pools this summer. And I appreciate that we've had a can-do attitude on how we can eventually get back to normal here. Very encouraging. Cases down, hospitalizations down, deaths way down, testing's down, 37% vaccinated. And I believe everyone on this council has at least been offered a vaccination. I know I get my last one tomorrow. Maybe not everybody's gotten both of them. But I can't let the discussion pass without just making a comment. It's time to have the discussion about getting back in person. And I would ask that be added to a city committee meeting for discussion. We're asking our teachers to go to school and our employees to go back to work. And I feel like once we're vaccinated, we need to have that discussion, which I would think would be within 2 or 3 weeks here. So that's my only additional comment. This is really encouraging, and I appreciate the update. Great job, Matt, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So then we have Sean Keenan next to discuss the aquatics.
Thank you, Mayor. Sean Keenan, Program Manager of Aquatics. I'm just going to give a brief update of the what the potential upcoming aquatic season is going to look like. Just to kind of start, we are starting with the operational dates. This actually had transitioned because based on the school district's calendar, we were going to have a late start. Fortunately, we will be able to offer opening Memorial Day weekend, which will be that Saturday, May 29th. School hours will be August 9th of 21, and then we will be closing on our normal season, which is going to be Labor Day, which falls on September 6th this year. Next slide. Obviously, we've had a lot of chatter here going back and forth with the cities regarding what opening plans were going to look like, what we're doing versus what everybody else is doing. It is very much still up in the air. Obviously, Matt kind of talked on that and discussed, that we are waiting for some additional health orders to potentially maybe drop off or be added to further on down the road. So based on the current outlook, we did go out and reach out to other cities regarding their outdoor facilities. And this is what they are planning on opening and what their opening plan looks like based on current staffing and projected staffing levels. So, and I'm going to kind of go into that as far as what staffing is and why that matters. So, Olathe, it looks like they are going to be opening all of their facilities with the exception of one. They have not come up with a capacity. Lenexa is going to be attempting to open all three of their facilities, but they will be doing a staggered open about 2 weeks apart for each one of those with a 50% cap on capacity currently. The city of Mission, pending that they receive more applications and more staff, they're planning on opening their one outdoor facility with undecided on capacity. Prairie Village is about the same, with the exception that they're looking at 50% daily average as far as not so much capacity, but their average daily attendance. And then Overland Park is planning on opening 3 out of their 5 facilities. Again, they're struggling with the applications and getting the labor force involved this season. Next slide. As far as what we are currently doing, we have begun training our staff. Just to follow up, I know we talked a lot about this last season. We are following the modified Red Cross lesson plan based on current COVID protocol. We are adhering to the most recent guidelines established by the CDC and Johnson County Health, limiting our class size, and we are able to utilize. Thankfully, our neighboring city, Marion, was able to let us borrow their indoor facility because the school district, unfortunately, was not available to us for much of our trainings. We are holding a lot more trainings than we would in a typical year. As you may recall from the last presentations, we do actually have to certify every single one of our staff members. Their certifications are only good for 2 years. So those that would have been certified last year, we were unable to do so. So we will be doing a lot of recertifications as well as a lot of new certifications for the new and upcoming staff. But what we are currently doing is not only that, we are actually actively needing to fill a lot of the lifeguard and swim instructor positions that we would normally at this time during the season would have more positions filled. And if we can go to the next slide, I can kind of show what that looks like. So currently, this is for full operation. So staffing numbers for full operation of both Suitered Aquatic Center and Splash Cove require between 80 and 90 lifeguards. 90 is an ideal perfect year. 80 is basically the bare minimum of what it requires to offer all operational hours at both facilities. We require 18 swim instructors for swim lessons at both facilities, pool attendants, which that includes our concession, our front desk, those 15, 16-year-old members. We would, in an ideal world, that would be 20 that we would need. Swim coaches is 7 and managers is 7. As you can see, the column on the right, this is what we are currently sitting at. So we have 41 lifeguards, and actually this was as of last Friday. We've acquired about 2 more, so we're at 43. Swim instructors, we're still at 6. Pool attendants, we're about 6 shy. Swim coaches and managers, that's a non-issue. But it's primarily the lifeguard and the swim instructors, which those positions require individuals 15 or older. Obviously, with the lifeguards, that also requires a certification, through the American Red Cross. The swim instructors, we actually teach them, so we certify them in our own program. So that's less of a concern. But this year, and again, not ourselves, we're not the only ones. It's been more of a countywide and a nationwide epidemic where we just haven't been getting applications in the numbers that we normally would. So, we have actively sent out, through all different forms of media, social media, all of the high schools, through the newspapers, through, all sorts of new apps that we didn't even know existed, to try to get into that user group and try to tap it. Unfortunately, we're not the only ones that are coming up with that idea, and there's a lot of reasons why we're not seeing those applications. But essentially what we're hoping for is we're hoping to get the word of mouth out that we really need that age group. We need those young individuals to start, like I said, 15-year-old, 16-year-old individuals, and we go all the way through college. But that's really a kind of one of our biggest needs right now, and that's really what we're focusing on. Next slide. So this is what it would look like if we were to open today. So in regards to this opening plan, and I just want to just preface this with, it is absolutely subject to change. Things are going to be changing for sure in the next 6 weeks. But this is currently what it would look like following CDC and Johnson County Health Directive. We may need to be considering modified hours for Cove in the 21 season. Again, that's referring to staffing. And that's something that we're going to look at, but we definitely have, about a month and a half of hiring. So, it's why we're kind of stressing the importance of word of mouth. Encouraging patrons to utilize our new splash pads at Erfurt and Wilder Bluff. We do have those, will be coming online over the summer out on the western side of Shawnee. So that'll be a new feature, which does not require any staffing or lifeguards. We would need to modify the current capacity of the facility. This is what it would look like if we modified it at 50%. So Suter would allow for roughly 714 individuals. Splash Cove would be roughly 400. We would absolutely have to look at our daycare frequency. We do have a large portion of our user groups, especially in the early hours, are those daycares, which are, the Shawnee resident children that go to a lot of the local, daycare organizations through JCPRD and St. Joe. And we wouldn't want to obviously eliminate that, but we might need to look at, if it were to remain at 50%, we would want to limit potentially the frequency to allow for obviously, general swimmers to come in as well. And then, assigned spacing for large areas of congregation, admission concession slides, the Wibbit, the diving board, those types of things would need to have the designation of the 6-foot distancing. We would also need to require masks be worn when not in the water, and that's through Johnson County Health. So essentially, individuals would be wearing masks into the facility, and then would take them off at their chair or designated area. They could enter the water, and then upon exiting the water, they would need to go get their mask and put it back on. We would have assigned staff for social distancing to enforce at both facilities to enforce the CDC and Johnson County directive about social distancing. It would need to be essentially a social distancing monitor. So we would have that be a special assigned position. We would provide additional communication of the expectations via signage and splash radio at both facilities. And then we would execute aggressive cleaning regimens for all high contact surface areas at the facility per the CDC and Johnson County as well. And again, subject to change. So any questions?
I have Councilmember Larson Bonnell and then Councilmember Thomas.
Just one quick clarification. Is staffing the only thing that is keeping us from reaching 100%, or are there other concerns that you have about restrictions that are in place for the county that affect this as well?
Yes. So currently, as far as the capacity and the issue of, obviously we would want the facilities, we'd want to be able to provide a social distancing as an option for individuals entering the facility for safety reasons, and that would be based on the current directive. But that, again, as I said, is subject to change.
Okay, I am more than happy to publish on my social media channels that we are looking for people, and I encourage our fellow council members to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas, and then Councilmember Knappen.
Just as a quick thought, in spending some time last week with some surrounding city council members and mayors, some of our cities acknowledge the Johnson County Commission's requirement. However, they have elected to encourage masks, but not mandate those masks. How close is Shawnee to being in that same train of thought? Especially when you think about kids playing outside in the summer at a pool and you're going to put on a mask.
Councilmember Thomas, this is Nolan. Can a little bit of clarification? I'm sorry, was that inside Johnson County?
Yes.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
So it's my understanding that this is a county health order that, unless Ellis
And
or someone else.
these, yeah, it's Gardner. In fact, they indicated that they encourage masks, but they don't mandate the masks.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to look into that. It's my understanding that this is a county health order, and the conversation before in terms of who enforces it has came up, and we discussed that previously. But this is a countywide health order, as far as I know.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Just sharing information from something I was in attendance at the end of last week. That there were folks there from Overland Park, Miriam, Gardner, Edgerton, Olathe. So it was definitely all inside the boundaries of Johnson County.
Thank you. We can I can follow up and look into that more.
That'd be great.
Okay. Councilmember Nappen?
Yeah, so maybe this is supposed to be obvious, but you specifically listed out and talked about Splash Cove, but both pools are going to be open, right? Splash Cove possibly modified hours?
That is correct. The intent would obviously be to do everything we absolutely could to open both facilities. When it comes to the amenities, or rather the programming side of things, the Suter Aquatic Center, obviously it's a larger facility. It can accommodate more individuals, but we also have the Shawnee Sharks swim team, the swim lessons, most of our aerobics and fitness programs. All of those things are basically from 5:30 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. We have a full schedule. So our intention would be obviously to provide both facilities open. It would absolutely crush me not to. But when it comes to the staffing, we would definitely have to look at that, or potentially look at modifying hours or amenities. That's another conversation we would potentially have to have, just because at both facilities they require quite a few lifeguards at one time.
Sure, I understand. I was just clarifying. And then just to confirm, and this may be Nolan, so you're saying that this is a county health order that would stay in effect even if the Johnson County mask mandate goes away? No? The same
no,
thing.
I would refer, yeah, same thing. I was referring to the Johnson County health order that's through the end of April. That is the
right. So if that goes away, would our intent be for it to go away at pools requirement?
As far as I know, I can defer to Sean if he has different requirements per Department of Health and Environment. But the order I was referring to was the county health order. And again,
Okay.
that could be extended. That currently is through April 30th. That order could be extended. So.
Okay. And last thing, I'm sure you've thought of this, but having two kids in that age range, they spend about 6 hours of their day on Instagram. So if we can get to Instagram, we can get some people hired. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's all the hands I see, Sean.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have Don Cobby next with our COVID stimulus funding overview.
Mayor, this is Nolan. I'll actually jump in and Don kind of tag team this if there's some additional information.
Okay.
Wanted to make you all aware, and I had sent out some information a few weeks ago regarding the recent stimulus package, which is known as the American Rescue Plan. That package totals about $1.9 trillion. Of that, about $350 billion went to state and local governments. What that means for Shawnee is that we are expected, and I emphasize expected, we do not have these funds yet, to receive just over $7 million. The intent of the bill is that we will receive half the funds we expect around May 15th of this year. The other half of those funds would come in 2022. The formula is kind of a modified CDBG formula. These are not CDBG funds, but that's a formula that they use. Overall, Johnson County is an organization, Johnson County government, they will receive approximately 116 or 118 million. On top of that, separately, Shawnee is set to receive the 7,160,000. So each city in the county, and to my understanding, really across the country, will receive a certain amount of funds. And again, that's through kind of a modified CDBG formula, and we will receive a direct allocation because the population cut was 50,000. So for us and Lenexa and Overland Park, Lathe, a few of the cities here in Johnson County that are over 50,000 will receive that direct allocation. If you recall prior conversations regarding CARES funding, we were kind of initially under that clock to get those funds used by the end of 2020. The good thing about the funds that are projected to come to us, the legislation says that these funds don't have to be used until December 31st of 2024. So we do have additional time to use these funds. With that being said, the additional time has meant that we don't have a lot of detail or guidance on how exactly to use these funds, which I'll talk about here in a second. So previously with the CARES funding and with this funding, we will follow the Treasury Department's guidance on how these funds can be utilized. And that information is kind of just now starting to come out. So really, in terms of the $350 billion to state and local governments, they really kind of have identified four, I guess, pots of money or pots of opportunity for us to utilize those funds, being revenue loss, premium pay, infrastructure, and direct assistance. So for example, as I have mentioned, we don't have a lot of detail. The question that we are looking into is, quite honestly, is how do they define sewer? Is that sanitary sewer? Is that storm sewer? And so we need a little guidance there, knowing that our stormwater projects have been a big priority for our governing body and our community. Also, in terms of broadband, our fiber plan build out, is the broadband intended for public use, or do we have an opportunity to expend some of the funds to expand our fiber network as well? So again, there's kind of this general information out there currently, but we don't have a lot of exact detail on some of these definitions in terms of how we can expend these funds. What I also want to keep in mind is that a number of programs have been created with this package. And so although we're set to receive just over 7 million out of the 1.9 trillion, for example, we do not want to create, or it's my intent not to create duplicate programs. For example, there's just over $28 billion towards restaurants. And so there's a grant program for restaurants, for example. And so those are things that we're trying to kind of look into and highlight and be aware of. There's money for homelessness assistance. There's money for housing and utility assistance. There's a shuttered venue fund. So there's a lot of different programs within that $1.9 trillion package that we still want to make sure that we're not kind of duplicating efforts, obviously, unless there continues to be a need for that. And so we will continue to follow that legislation and continue to follow the programming and guidance from the Treasury Department. Are there any questions for me? And I'll turn it over to, I'll turn it over to Lauren, or you can think about it and come back, but I'll turn it over to Lauren Grasshoff, our neighborhood planner. As you guys recall, she has been working hard on her CDBG funding. And so we'll kind of give an overview of how those funds were spent, as well as the city match that you all directed us to do last year as well.
Okay, so Lauren Grasshoff, neighborhood planner. I'll jump in here since it sounds like there weren't any questions on Nolan's portion. A lot of this information is the same as an update I provided in January. So you'll see most of it's pretty much the same information, but as part of the CARES Act money, there was specifically the CDBG coronavirus funds that were provided to the city of Shawnee in last July. The governing body chose to allocate the first round of funding for this, the coronavirus funds for public service assistance, and then also for small business grants. What you see here is just the awards that have been provided to date. And recently, we worked with some of our existing human service fund recipients to provide for additional service requests that they had needs for that were not being met with the 2021 human service funds. All of these will be directly towards coronavirus related. And we did think this was a good opportunity to use those city match funds. Next slide. So with the funding that we did receive, there's $39,400 still available to be allocated for public services assistance from the CDBG pot. And then we still have about $37,000 of the city match funds. These funds were specifically set aside for the public service assistance, including things like rent or utility assistance, healthcare costs, if those might be specifically COVID related. And these are available for any current or new service providers. So any of those organizations that we're currently providing funding to, if they have a need for additional funds, we could allocate funds to them, or other public service providers serving Shawnee residents that do come forward with a need for those. Next slide. And then the second portion of the CDBG CV program funds, $112,000 of those was allocated for small business economic recovery assistance. Those were $5,000 grants in the form of rent or mortgage assistance, and they were awarded to pay for no more than 3 months of rent or mortgage payments. And the governing body did authorize a city match of $112,000. Approximately $94,000 of the city match funds have been awarded to date. 20 businesses received assistance, and we paid 34 months of rent on behalf of Shawnee small businesses. All $112,000 of the CDBG CV money is still available, and approximately $18,000 of that city match is remaining. With the $5,000 max amount, we have enough funding for at least 26 more businesses. And then moving forward, just to give you some information, I do expect to come forward within the next month or so to provide a more defined timeline and probably a little bit expanded opportunity for those grants to reopen for that SARA program to utilize the remaining funds that have been set aside for this program. So you will be hearing more about that shortly. Next slide. In January of this year, the governing body did approve additional requests that we received from Friends of JCDS. A portion of that funds they did request for 3 residents they have here in Shawnee to provide for air purifiers or air scrubbers in HVAC systems that they have at homes that serve intellectually and developmentally disabled persons. And then the second project that they proposed and was approved was for $16,000 to pay a portion of additional funding they have to make accessibility improvements to a home they purchased here in Shawnee. That home is actively being used for any clients that contract COVID-19 or do need to isolate. After the tentative timeline is for that home to transition in May to their permanent housing stock. But of course, it just depends on client needs if they will be available to continue to isolate any clients. Next slide. What's next? So here's just kind of a summary, a real quick highlight. We do have approximately $227,000 of the coronavirus monies that are unprogrammed. So that means we haven't selected projects and they're not specifically set aside either for public service or small business grant assistance. Kind of like Nolan noted with the American Rescue Plan funds, we do have an extended timeline to spend these funds. So we do want to try to not sort of duplicate that benefit, which is actually restricted with these funds, and provide some flexibility for use as needs arise through the changing coronavirus pandemic. The primary restriction for use of these funds beyond just providing low to moderate income benefit, which is a national objective and eligibility requirement. The funds do also have to be utilized to prepare for the prevention of or respond to the coronavirus. And I believe, yep, that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, I have Councilmember Larson Bonnell, Councilmember Chafee, and Councilmember Nappen. Councilmember Larson Bonnell.
Thank you. Lauren, thank you very much for the information tonight. I don't think I'm alone on the council to say that I'm certainly frustrated, and I think that staff are frustrated with our true inability to give this money away. It seems like the most ridiculous thing that we are trying to do something good, and it's very difficult to do. So my question for you is there something that we as a council did that made this more difficult? So that's the first part of the question. And then the second part of the question is there anything that we can do now to loosen the reins, or is this just a very difficult program that is going to take some time? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this program is truly, it just has a lot of restrictions and thresholds that have to be met, not only just for eligibility, but then for organizations to track and report back. It's quite a cumbersome program. So we always, before we undertake any new activities with a new subrecipient, we have a lot of training and just upfront review of this program that has to happen, just because it is it's quite cumbersome. I try to simplify things and provide direct assistance, but obviously we have somewhat limited staff capacity to be able to do that. So we rely a lot on subrecipients providing the direct assistance to residents. So I'm trying to get these funds out, but there's just a lot of restrictions to them. And also the fact that these funds don't allow what's called a duplication of benefits. So these are essentially the last funds that are allowed to be spent from any of those federal rescue or emergency funds. This is really kind of the last pot of money that is allowed to be withdrawn from.
Okay, if there's anything that we can do, please let us know. And as I recall correctly, we do have on our legislative agenda the fact that the CDBG funding is so difficult to spend, and whether the federal government can do anything to help ease that. And I'm glad that we have that on that legislative agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Chafee, and then Councilmember Nappen, and then Councilmember Thomas. Councilmember Chafee.
Thank you. Lauren, I know this question was asked at one of your previous updates, but could you please remind me the reasoning behind $93,000 of that city match being spent, but yet none of the federal funds? I know there was a logical answer to it, but I'm just not recalling what that was.
Sure. So we did advertise the program, and we did want it because we had that flexibility. Is really what that city match was intended for. So none of the businesses that originally applied through that round one of the SARA program qualified, met the qualifications of the federal funding requirements, but we obviously still wanted to be able to provide that assistance. So we did withdraw from the city match first, is how that worked out.
Got it. That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nappen, and then Councilmember Thomas, then Councilmember Jenkins. Councilmember Nappen.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the update. It's been a while since we got it, so I appreciate it. Thank God that we put in the city match, or else we wouldn't have helped anybody. So because we did that, we were able to help 26 businesses. I'm really happy to hear that. I also look forward to hearing how staff proposes we spend the 7.1 million. Not that there's not needs, particularly at our stormwater, but we're in a relatively strong financial position, amazingly, given what we've been through. And this is a pretty good windfall from the federal government here. So look forward to hearing that discussion. And then my question really goes to the really the same point that Ms. Larson-Bonnell brought up. And I guess my question, Lauren, is, it says it has to be to help prepare for, respond to COVID, I think. I think your word was there's 226,000 in unprogrammed money, and we want to create flexibility for use. As we're out talking to small business owners, is there flexibility or creativity that you see that we can get some of these funds used? Because so far we haven't dipped into we haven't figured out how to dip into any of the federal. So I'm just curious if you would have any tips for us or for business owners or us as we speak to them.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so I definitely did see, I think we were kind of hesitant at first when we first did the initial round, that we would almost get flooded with applications because the need was so high at the time. So I don't want to say restrictive, but the pool of businesses that were eligible was relatively small. So I am looking into and will certainly provide some more flexibility as far as what the city requires for the second round, likely looking at increasing the number of full-time employees, the max from 50 to somewhere probably around 100 or 150, potentially allowing any small businesses that are just solely owned and operated, allowing some flexibility there. And then there's some other criteria that I'm going to review prior to releasing that second round that can, at least on the city side, provide some flexibility. We really don't have any with the federal requirements, but loosening what we can on the city side.
And I appreciate that. Just in follow-up, and maybe there's nothing you can do, but you might consider also preparing a tip sheet, if you will, for local businesses on how we could tap in to some of these federal funds. It's a shame that they're out there, and however our Congress wrote up the bill, we can't even get them. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll add too, I have received some feedback from our businesses that, Shawnee residents really stepped up and supported them. And several have told me that, what they received more was like a punch on the arm that left a little bruise, but they didn't lose a limb. So I think that's very good to hear. But I mean, yes, obviously, if anybody is, really suffering, really hurting, we want to definitely make sure we're doing everything we can to help them. But I just can't say enough about our community and how they stepped up, and that, our businesses aren't hurting as badly as some of the others are. And I'm pretty proud of that, of our people. Councilmember Thomas and Councilmember Jenkins.
Hi, I just wanted to talk about a demographic of folks who are some of our silent folks in need, and they're typically single moms with children. They're a shoestring or less away from dealing with the state, foster care, and all of those types of things. Good parents just have found themselves in a situation due to COVID, because so many restaurants did close, that they're waitresses and things such as that. So they're no longer in an apartment. They can't pay their rent, no job. So then that puts their children at risk. How can we support people like that?
Councilmember Thomas, this is Nolan. I would say if there's opportunities, I know there might be hesitancy to share that information or contact information. But if we know who those folks are, then we can try to get them the resources and make sure they know of the programs and availability of some of these items that could assist them. I know the thing that we talk about frequently with any sort of program is kind of the Midwest humbleness, I guess, if you will, and people saying, oh, I'm sure somebody else is hurting worse than me, or there's another business that's hurting worse than my business. But the reality is we feel like there are some programs out there that could be of assistance. And, whether it's through a third party or through, somebody indirectly, we'd be happy to try and make sure that folks are aware of those programs that Johnson County has to offer against those utility assistance programs and home repair programs, and some of these programs through just the COVID and CARES funds.
Yeah. Utility assistance, it's not much help whenever you've lost your apartment. So I know this kind of thing personally, and sometimes for these folks who are our greatest need families, to go yet into another program, to reach out to yet someone else is a barrier. And so how do we reduce those barriers to make this more real than just possible? So I guess that's something that I would like to know, because I do know not only myself, but other organizations that have people that they have exhausted all of the funds that they have that they can support, but yet the line is longer. And if supporting some of these families means 3 more months in your apartment with your children, and maybe you can get on your feet, maybe grandma can get through what she's going through to support kids. But it means fewer kids coming into our foster care system, which when we talk about financial impact, that's huge. But anyway, that's just an avenue that I would like to see us really, really take a serious look at, because these are people that you pass in the Walmarts, or maybe in a school parking lot, or a teacher would know of a family that's no longer around our city because of misfortune such as this. But appreciate it.
And there are rental assistance or housing assistance programs, both as part of the recent bill and existing programs, both through the state and I believe through the county. So there are some resources there. I think as you referenced, those barriers, I think will always present a challenge, kind of in reference to those CDBG funds that we have. They will require tracking and, information and paperwork to fill out. Hopefully those barriers aren't too much, but in terms of, federal dollars, especially with the federal dollars, these programs I think are very tracked in terms of the level of detail, because even with the previous CARES funding, those dollars had to be tracked to what they call kind of the end user piece of it. So it couldn't just be a donation to a nonprofit. You had to track then how that nonprofit was going to actually distribute those dollars and to who they distribute those dollars to. So yes, the barriers are a challenge for sure. But when it's the federal funds piece of this, that's going to be part of that tracking mechanism they have. But again, if folks, we can try to get them connected into those various programs. So thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. I have Councilmember Jenkins and then Councilmember Larson Bonnell. Councilmember Jenkins.
Yes, thank you. Something very quick. I just like it if you, Michelle, and Nolan would get your heads together and decide who would like to pen the letter. I think it's time for us to send letters to our congressional delegation, because I don't know how well they read our legislative agenda, but something tells me they didn't read it very carefully. I would like to see us actually petition them directly with the CDBG thing and with input from Lauren on what the issues really are, and run it back up the flagpole, because that's the only way that we're going to get them to focus on this. Having worked in the federal government for over 30 years, you had to hit them with a hammer sometimes to get their attention. And so that's what I'm suggesting, that we actually go on record. And I think the reason I'm suggesting the two of you to kind of get to spearhead this thing, because you have the opportunity to contact the mayors and city managers of the other communities here in Johnson County. It'd be nice if they got about 10 letters, frankly. So if you could coordinate something like that and get that out, maybe we could make some progress on coming to some sort of solutions on how we can take federal dollars and actually use them to help people. I know that's the intent. Well, the intent is not working. So back to the drawing board, we need to fire these guys up a little bit and tell them that it's not working and underscore that for them and see if we can make some progress.
Right. That is a very good suggestion, Councilmember Jenkins. I will see what I can do. Councilmember Larson Bonnell?
Thank you. To piggyback off of Councilmember Thomas's comments, we had a lot of discussions when this program first came to us about how we weren't comfortable as a city to provide direct assistance for things like rent for individuals because of staffing. And so we decided to use the intermediary approach, which was giving money to other organizations that provide this kind of support. And the Salvation Army, I know, was one of them. I am definitely at the point where I am more than happy to explore what direct assistance would look like in the city of Shawnee. I would at least want to understand what kind of staffing would be required. I feel like that might be one way that we can break through some of these issues. So thank you.
Thank you. And I do not see any other hands. I did want to address Councilmember Knappen and getting back in person. So my hopes are that everybody that wants to be vaccinated can be fully vaccinated, and this mask mandate is lifted April 30th as it is supposed to be. And so my hopes are that we can be completely back in person with all of us in May if everything goes as planned. So that's where I'm at right now. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that everybody gets vaccinated that wants to be, and that we get this mask mandate lifted. This item was for informational purposes only. So the next item on the agenda is public items. Item number 1 is to consider resolution number 1941, authorizing the issuance of education facility revenue bonds for the benefit of Maranatha Christian Academy. Maranatha is building a new campus at the northeast corner of 71st and Silver Hill Street and has requested the bonds in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $13 million. A resolution is required. Recommended action is consider adopting resolution number 1941. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Councilmember Constance?
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering if we have any updates on conversations between neighbors and the school. I know that was kind of an ongoing goal when some of the council members met with residents out there. So I didn't know if we had any updates, if that communication was still going. Just want to make sure they all have good input into this. That's my question. Thank you. Does anyone have an answer?
Yeah, this is Carrie Shiner.
Thank you. Yeah.
This is Carrie Shiner with Maranatha.
Go ahead.
Yes, I've been in contact with the homeowners associations. We have decided to, they asked for us to contact them when we start the build process, which is going to be here shortly. So we do have a plan to reach out to them, and all relations have been good so far. And there's no real concerns that I'm aware of.
Great, thank you so much. And, I'd love to be included. I don't know if Councilmember Chalfie from Ward 4 would as well, but just when y'all meet so we can make sure we're up to date as well.
Yep, absolutely will. I'll get that out to you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak to this item?
No, Mayor.
Okay, I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 2 is conduct a public hearing to consider levying special assessments in the Belmont Promenade Community Improvement District. The developer requests the public hearing be continued to the City Council meeting on April 26, 2021. If the public hearing is opened, it will be continued to that meeting. I'll accept a motion to conduct a public hearing to consider levying special assessments in the Belmont Promenade Community Improvement District.
Move to open a public meeting.
Second.
City Manager Sunderman, can you explain to me, do we still open the public meeting, but then we're going to continue it?
That is
Correct. Is that correct?
yes, I believe that is correct. Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to.
They have requested that we open and then continue it to the April 26th meeting.
Okay, thank you. So a motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We're now in a public hearing. This is a formal public hearing required by law. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Councilmember Jenkins?
Just have my hand up because since we do not have the developer here and we do not have anybody represented from the neighborhood that would like to discuss this, I'd recommend that we continue the public hearing to Monday, April 26, 2021 at 7 p.m.
Second.
Okay, let me affirm just real quickly though, since we did have some members in the audience. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak to this item?
Oh, there is one.
There is one, Mayor.
Okay, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Oh, sorry. Start over. I'm Carol Mundy. I live at 6040 Ballantyne here in Shawnee. I've been to 2, maybe 3 things with these people. They always have wonderful things they're talking about. And I'm concerned about putting any kind of tax on anything that has to do with supporting their plans because they haven't done anything except make a mess over there. I also looked at the picture of where that increased sales tax would be applied, and it was a huge area. And it's like anybody with a business in that area has no choice but to charge that extra sales tax. And if people shopping in those areas have any clue that that's happening, that is not fair. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else from the audience that would like to speak to this item?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Jenkins, would you like to make your motion, please?
Yes, I could repeat the recommendation to continue the public hearing to Monday, April 26, 2021 at 7 p.m.
Second.
Zimmerman.
Motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is from the Planning Commission meeting of March 15th, 2021. Item number 1 is to consider ordinance number 3364 PUD 21-0000001, rezoning from commercial neighborhood to plan unit development mixed residential for Pine Gate West Lot 2, 2.7 acre multifamily development proposed at 6445 Flint Street. Planning Commission recommended 10-0 that the governing body approve the rezoning subject to the conditions in the staff report. An ordinance is required. Recommended actions: consider passing ordinance number 3364. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak to this item?
No, Mayor.
I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve. Zimmerman.
Second.
Second.
Jenkins.
A motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is staff items. Item number 1 is to consider contract number 2021-042 utility relocation agreement with Kansas Pipeline Company related to the Monticello Road project number 3489. This project's on the capital improvement program. A relocation agreement is required for 2 high-pressure gas lines. City share estimated at $590,400 is included in the project budget. Recommended actions: consider approving and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract as approved by the city attorney. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Does anyone from the audience like to speak to this item?
No, Mayor.
I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve.
Second. Zimmerman.
Motion's been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 2 is to consider contract number 2021-043, a 10-year lease agreement for the parking lot at 11118 West 59th Street. As downtown Shawnee continues to thrive, staff looks for opportunities to increase parking. Staff has negotiated a 10-year lease with the owner of the parking lot at 11118 West 59th Street for $1 per year plus annual property taxes and maintenance. City would also have the first right of refusal for the adjacent property at 5835 Barton as part of the agreement. The estimated cost of the lease is $16,300 over a 10-year period. Recommended action is consider approving and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract as approved by the city attorney. Does anyone on the council have any questions?
I do.
Councilmember Thomas?
Sorry about that. I couldn't get my hand up. How many parking spots does this entail?
This is Nolan. I apologize. I got a picture. I believe it's 15 or 18 spots here. I can't recall. So.
They would be available 7 days a week?
Yes, the city would essentially be responsible for the property.
Steve Hauk has his hand up. He might know the answer.
I don't remember exactly, but there's a picture of it in the memo packet. We can count them, in fact. So why don't I just do that? Of course, my picture is too small.
It
1,
says
2, 3,
15
4, 5.
stalls in the discussion
Yeah.
of the packet.
There you go.
Sorry.
It says
Yeah, it's in the packet.
approximately 15 stalls. It's right above the picture. It's buried a little bit.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak to this item?
No, Mayor.
Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve, Zimmerman.
Second, Larson Bennell.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 3 is to discuss creating a public common consumption area within downtown Shawnee. Staff is seeking direction on the creation of a public common consumption area within downtown Shawnee and authorizing the possession and consumption of alcoholic liquor within its boundaries for civic and special events and sidewalk cafes and outdoor patios. Lauren Grassoff, neighborhood planner, will make a presentation. Welcome, Lauren.
Great, thank you, everyone. So I think really kind of when I started looking into this, in theory and sort of what we had thought this was as staff is more broad than what it actually is and how we're proposing to define it. So next slide. I'm going to go over just briefly what a common consumption area is, the alcohol and beverage control state requirements, review what would be allowed and required if we were to create a common consumption area here in downtown, provide a couple just scenarios for review, and then we can have discussion after that if there are any questions. Next slide. So a common consumption area is defined by the state as an indoor or outdoor area not otherwise licensed where the possession and consumption of alcoholic liquor is allowed pursuant to what's called a common consumption area permit. And really essentially what it says not otherwise licensed means areas that are beyond what maybe a bar or restaurant has within their licensed premises. In order to create a common consumption area and pull a permit, the city must pass an ordinance or resolution creating that area and then designating its boundaries. Any specific rules that the city wants to establish, we would include in that in the ordinance. And then in order to allow the common consumption in streets and alleys or public right-of-way, the state statute does require that any of those public streets or alleys be blocked from vehicular traffic. So we wouldn't be talking about closing the streets, you know, in the evenings or any time like that. It would strictly primarily be for special events or any of the public civic events that the city hosts. Next slide. If the city were to approve an ordinance for the common consumption area, the city is required, or city is not required, but a common consumption area permit has to be obtained from the state. There's a $100 fee, and that's non-refundable. That the permit then is valid for 1 year and may be renewed annually. Licensed ABC establishments within that defined area or immediately adjacent to may participate in that common consumption area by obtaining ABC approval. That's a one-time application and there's no fee for that. It allows legal patrons to remove alcohol purchased on premise to be removed into that area as stipulated in our ordinance. And that also allows licensees to sell and serve alcohol from one non-contiguous area. And I'll kind of go through what this means when I show the examples specifically. Next slide. Oop, back one there. So the sales of alcohol within the area are only permitted beyond those already established businesses by licensed caterers, by a separate temporary permit, or by a drinking establishment that already exists in that area to operate non-contiguous in an area. Alcoholic liquor removed from licensed premises must be placed into a container that displays a licensee's trade name, logo, or other unique identifying mark. Part of that stipulation when I talked with the ABC officials was to help identify if there are any concerns with a business that maybe has patrons beyond what's allowed in the common consumption area. Then we would be able to identify them and resolve any concerns we had with that. Glass containers are not permitted. And then alcohol cannot be brought into that area. And also patrons can also not leave with any open containers purchased within that area. Next slide. So for specific to downtown Shawnee, we are looking at really highlighting the core for this area of our downtown area where we see most of our civic events, and we have really the massing of those businesses that have our ABC licensed businesses. So we're looking at King Street over to Blue Jacket, and then West 58th south to West 59th. And this does include the public streets and alleyways within the area. We would specifically limit it to only during civic events, special events. So really our definition of special event is a hosted by a private business, and then sidewalk cafes or outdoor patios. Next slide. This is not a 24/7 alcohol consumption allowance. This doesn't mean that someone can leave transport and walk over to service at 6 in the afternoon. That's not what this is. Possession and consumption is permitted within that area from 9 a.m. to 11 is what we're proposing. We can certainly change the time in the ordinance if council feels that's appropriate. A special event permit would be required for licensed businesses to host a private event within the common consumption area. And our special event regulations are codified in our zoning regulations, chapter 17.76. So we would follow those procedures, including its administrative review by the Community Development Department. And we coordinate those based on event types and activities with police, fire, and public works departments. We review information as far as, dates, times, if there'll be music, hours, expected attendance, how they're going to accommodate both parking and then operations, activities, layout, emergency access, a lot of different items that we review to make sure that these events are going to be safe and they can accommodate. Next slide. Oh, back one. The downtown common consumption area would be our sidewalk cafes and outdoor patios are permitted as long as a minimum of 5 foot wide access could be maintained, and that's into building entries, to, utilities, bicycle facilities, and then also just along the sidewalk so we can maintain accessibility. City permits would not be required for those. And then licensed establishments are required per statute to demarcate the common consumption areas, and they are responsible for their own event expenses, operations, setup, any security, traffic control, anything relative to those. And the ordinance also prohibits inappropriate behavior, has some enforcement policies and expectations basically for the businesses to participate in this area. And then there is a compliance. We're looking at it just basically the city's ability to revoke participation if there are any issues specific to a business participating in the consumption area. Next slide. So this is just an example here. I've got the Moonlight Market. We're talking about hosting, our produce vendors, live music, art and craft vendors, primarily in the market area, so City Hall parking lot. All the starred businesses are licensed alcohol and beverage control businesses, so they are permitted to serve alcohol. Any of those businesses that, for instance, wanted to serve or sell over in the market area would be permitted to, as long as they have that CCA permit. It's considered a non-contiguous area, so they could serve in their market area. Or if they wanted to hold something in conjunction at the same time as the Moonlight Market, they could do so in what's called a contiguous area. And that could be on private property. One of the sort of red tapes that we were having before was the alley that's actually behind the Aztec Theater, and Santos and Transport's actually public. So anytime they wanted to hold an event in that private parking lot in the back, they had to walk through the public alley, which required governing body approval. So with this ordinance, that actually it's a one-time approval for the year, and it does allow any of our special event activities, for instance, like Wheels and Dreams, we used to have a spring open house, the Moonlight Market. Anytime that we want to shut down Johnson Drive, for instance, and already have the alcohol allowances like Chris Kindle Market, this basically just does that for the whole year. We don't have to take this to governing body every time we want to do that. Or for instance, Transport to have an event in their back parking lot. Those also require, of the licensed businesses, it's called a temporary extension of premise. And this, creating this area actually gets rid of that requirement. So that's, one less permit and fee that those businesses have to do annually or per each event. And we are really kind of creating that flexibility and lessening the burden on the businesses within this area. We're trying to create more of those opportunities and just activities downtown, creating those walkable, memorable places and spaces. And this helps to sort of encourage those different activities. Next slide. And this is just an example of, like I mentioned, like a private event. I know Transport last year had an Oktoberfest in that area, the event area I highlighted here. Again, because this is a public alley, they would traditionally have to have governing body approval anytime they wanted to have an event. Now, the only approval beyond the participation permit through the ABC is just the special event permit approval required by city. And we would make sure that, they're delineating the area, how they're providing for parking, any sort of activities they're doing in there. If there were to be music, that meets their noise ordinance restrictions, and then also any sort of security that would be necessary. Any of those start businesses that are immediately adjacent to this area are allowed to participate. And then any business that, say for instance, McLean's wanted to come over and serve alcohol, they are allowed to do so since they are within the district, the designated boundaries of this area. And then just a final note, within the broad area, because there's that defined event area, the green sort of area you'll see on the screen would have to be provide for the delineation as well as restricting vehicle access. Next slide. So as I noted, the current process that we go through, and these are just kind of the different permitting processes through ABC, but this provides some flexibility with essentially just a one-time approval for the area for the year that does allow our businesses to participate in both our civic events, host their own private events, and gets rid of some of that burden on them for getting those temporary extension of permits, excuse me, and getting those, like if they wanted to do an event or do a sidewalk cafe or an outdoor patio and be allowed to have their guests or patrons to have alcohol out there. The common consumption area designation, like I said, supports sort of that diverse interactive downtown by expanding event offerings. It supports downtown businesses by creating opportunities to participate in civic events. Again, it limits fees and permits on the businesses, allows for expansion of licensed premises. I know last year when we talked about parklets, we were specifically referencing those for basically allowing additional capacity for businesses for all the COVID-19 protocols. We're still within those this year. So this would allow those sidewalk cafes or outdoor patios. And then it's overall just an efficient means to allow already permissible activities, just limiting the sort of permitting and fees that are associated with the current processes. Next slide. Next steps. So if the governing body would like to pursue creating the common consumption area, staff will draft an ordinance to present for consideration at the April 26th City Council meeting. If they do adopt the ordinance, the city would apply for the common consumption area permit to the Kansas ABC director. Upon that approval, any licensed businesses within the defined area can request to participate, and that does require approval by the ABC and then also the city. Next slide. Okay, that was the end of my presentation. I'm sure there are probably questions about this, so I can take any of those.
So Lauren, I have a few questions, and then I see Councilmember Zimmerman has his hand up right now. So just because I'm thinking back to a past experience, I don't know if you were here or not when it happened, and I won't mention the business's name during the meeting, but they used to be located at Shawnee Mission Parkway in Flum, and they would hold a huge event that ended up causing us some issues, and we had to shut them down, but it took a lot of staff time. And when they would hold their events, we would recoup the cost of our police officers and so on and so forth. And kind of like the same when we are helping with parades or any other type of events. Are we seeing with these private events, is there going to be any type of cost, and are they going to be responsible for the cost of staff? And then in addition to that, to go the extreme, what if a business decided they were having an event every day or every weekend or every month?
Sure. So as far as costs, the city's we are not going to be providing, unless it's specifically we're providing it as part of one of our events. will not be providing any sort of resources, public works for traffic control, police for specifically for like event security. We won't be providing any of that through this ordinance, and typically we don't for any sort of private special events. I know there are some instances where maybe some police services have been hired to provide security, but obviously beyond what the police department or city provides.
Okay, so they're not going to be shutting down streets or anything like this particular business used to do. And yeah, we did require that they use our services. So it wasn't like the officers that go work at Power Play for the evening. This was a larger event and situation.
Certainly. And so any of those private events, we're going to review through our standard special event permit process. And if, it's really large, if they're going to be closing down streets and it's, maybe if they want to do, 2 blocks of closing streets, obviously we're going to get, police, public works, fire involved in this review. And it's completely within our capacity. If they can't accommodate for security, emergency, whatever, any of the city requirements, so that's certainly something we can deny. And then just beyond that, we don't allow special event permits for every day, and those are limited as far as number for those. So the only really allowance for essentially kind of everyday use is just the outdoor patio or the sidewalk cafe type use.
Okay, so I didn't see though, is there a maximum amount of events that someone could have in a year?
Yeah, so our special event guidelines, and it depends on we have 4 types. Essentially there's type 1 and 2 are kind of just private, smaller events. 3 and 4 are larger kind of block party type events. And those are limited. I want to say 4 right now. I don't have the ordinance right in front of me, but those are limited in number per year by business.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. And two, with closing down the streets, even though everyone loved the car show, we would get a lot of complaints when we shut down the streets. And so it turned out to be so much better when we moved it down to Shawnee Town. So hopefully any street closures would be at a minimum because residents don't like that.
Yeah, we understand that. We likely, if anything, this is more to accommodate like if half a block or one of the side streets were to be closed probably for a special event, but closing Johnson or Neiman, I mean, we don't even, it's a big push just for the city to do for our special events. So having a private business or entity do that is really not what this would allow.
Okay, good. Right. Yeah. And I'm good. If it's a large event that, the city's doing and everyone's participating, I think that's great, like the Chris Kindle Market. But yeah, if it's a private event, I would struggle with closing down Neiman or Johnson Drive. Councilmember Zimmerman, and then Councilmember Thomas, and then Councilmember Jenkins.
Thank you, Mayor and Lauren. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm always impressed with some of the creative thought that you bring to council for a lot of the proposals that you've brought us in the past. Once again, in my opinion, you've put a lot of thought into what this will do in terms of helping our downtown businesses thrive and make our downtown that we've invested so much money in just a little bit more popular and a lot more successful. So strongly advocating for this. I would notice and just want to share with my fellow council members, it seems to me that this process that you've laid out for us is actually streamlining a lot of the existing rules and regulations that are in place and that are to some extent sort of encumbering entertainment in that area. it looks like you've stripped out some of the red tape, simplified it, and I think I saw somewhere it's $100 fee for the year. I think we can swing that. So thank you very much for your work, and I'm very much a strong advocate for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Thomas, Councilmember Jenkins.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Lauren. Matt was quite right. You've done a great job in sharing this. I do, if you could back up to the map of event space. I think there was one, yeah, possible event space. Down in the lower right corner, is that on Johnson Drive? I haven't driven what you've outlined, but is that Amos Funeral Home?
Yeah, this is strictly hypothetical. I was just kind of saying, maybe McLean's and Service could team up, and obviously with Amos approval, potentially share use of that parking space for, an afternoon event or something. This was strictly just hypothetical.
Okay. The thing that concerns me on that just a little bit is, their type of business really isn't planned. It can change quickly. And I don't know about an event in a parking place right by parking where folks would go to mourn the loss of a loved one or a friend, and not to sound gruesome and down and out, but it is a thought that crosses my mind, because you can have party goers and then you also have, folks who are more somber and how do we play that out to respect, number one, an established icon in our city, but also support what you're talking about. I'd like to see a little bit more, gain more understanding on how that would work. And also 9 o'clock seems really early to, where's the wellness coordinator? Got some pickled livers. But it just seems really early to approve something along these lines. And those are just specific things, but appreciate the work that you've put into it. Any additional insight you can give regarding Amos and the time frame to be open would be very helpful.
Maybe 9:15.
Matt.
Couldn't help myself. I'm sorry.
Councilmember Jenkins.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. In looking at this, I think Matt kind of touched on some of the things I was wanting to talk about, and that is we do all these things now, but we individually approve them, as opposed to having a overarching game plan for this is how we're going to manage it. This is this is our expectations as a city. This is the controls we're going to place on it, and then turning it over to the staff to execute. So I kind of like that concept. I echo the mayor in not wanting to shut down streets, but I don't think we're going to do that for individual private things. That's going to still be for city sponsored events, I would think. And if there was some other event, that would be on a case by case basis, certainly at that time. So generally looking at it, it looks like a good concept, and it looks like something that's going to further our downtown businesses, and it's going to reduce, like Matt said, some of the red tape and additional fees and all the headaches that go with trying to carry out an event. I appreciate Councilwoman Thomas's point about Amos Funeral Home. That is a concern I have, that they're right next door to, and that's going to require some significant coordination between the folks at Cervase and Amos. And I think we need to make sure the Amos folks are on board with that before we want to move forward. The other thing, addressing the 9 a.m. I thought my antennas went up when I saw that as well. But, then I thought about, my time when I was in New Orleans doing brunch down there, and Five Sisters, or whatever the name of that place is, and they're serving champagne with the brunch, and maybe somebody has to have a Bloody Mary to fix the hair of the dog from the night before or something like that. I guess it's feasible if you had a patio kind of event with a breakfast brunch kind of thing. But normally speaking, I'm kind of worried if we got people out there hitting it hard at 9 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, that's my comments. I generally support this at this point. Of course, the devil's always in the details. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak to this item?
No, Mayor.
Okay, so if we are going to accept a motion, I can accept a motion to forward an ordinance establishing a common consumption area within downtown Shawnee to the April 26, 2021 City Council meeting for consideration.
Move to approve forwarding the ordinance. Larson Bonnell.
Second, Zimmerman.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is miscellaneous items. Item number 1 is to ratify the semi-monthly claims for April 12, 2021 in the amount of $3,056,979.85. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Anyone from the audience? Oh, I'm sorry. Did someone say something?
I'm sorry about that. I'm having a hard time getting my hand up.
Yep.
A couple of questions. I noticed number 6799 has, we've nearly got $500 in Sam's Club memberships. It's that, so we're paying for every, how many people is that to be a member? And we're paying for it per person. So it is, can we not? That seems like a lot of money to spend so that apparently individual people have a membership. How do we justify that many memberships to Sam's Club?
Councilmember Thomas, this is Nolan. I believe that's a business membership, but I can get the details of that and confirm.
Okay. Okay, that would be great. And then just a couple of others. We had employee FEMA photos for $1,400.
Yes, we are transitioning to a badge system that's also FEMA compliant. And so that was that process. We're actually getting ready to launch those here this week.
So they took pictures of how many people for $1,400? Or was that part of generating the whole system?
That was for the photos, and I will have to, I'm not sure the number of employees that we did, but they set up here in the council chambers over a number of hours to collect those photos for our staff.
Okay. And then one last question, number 6791, MCG Consulting Group and 2021 actuarial valuation benefits calculation. Is that the group that did the healthcare benefits?
No, that is not.
Okay. And what would that be for? $15,200?
That's our actuarial for a supplemental pension plan that I believe stopped in 2012. I believe I have my date right. So that's a pension plan that the city manages for employees that vested in the program prior to it ending.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a follow-up question to the photo question. So before on our badges, it was just I think it was a blue screen on a back office that we took our pictures on and printed the badge out. Why did these need a photographer in the council chambers?
I believe it was to coordinate. I believe it has to be a plain background and have somebody set up over. I can't remember how many days that we did it. To have somebody sit there and coordinate that. I think we took all photos for employees that would like them.
Oh, yeah, because before the employee photos and the governing body photos, it was just a back office there in City Hall. There is a plain screen in the background. And I know when we did the community emergency response team photos, Matt had a gray wall that we stood in front of and he just snapped our pictures, I think, with his phone. For our badges. So are these like professional headshots for other uses beyond the badges?
No, this is a white background that they use so we can launch the badge system and have updated photos for staff. And they have to be cropped. I think, a certain way in order for it to be compliant to upload into the system in order for us to generate the badges.
Right, that's exactly what we had to do with the system with CERT. They have to be an exact size, and we just shot them against the wall. So we didn't hire a professional photographer, and these are FEMA badges. They can get us into any of the disaster sites. So it's not just like somebody playing on their computer. Kind of like passport photos. They had to be a certain size, a certain crop, a certain everything.
Yeah. Correct. And I think this was just for a number of employees. I don't have the exact number, but I know they were here for a number of hours to coordinate that and provide the photos for us.
So who took the photo?
It was for a large group for city staff.
Right. Who took those?
I don't.
It says Amber Dawkins Photography.
Thank you.
DAWKINS.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak to this item?
There is not.
I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve. Zimmerman.
Second, Constance.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Miscellaneous council items. Does anyone on the council have an item they would like to discuss? Not seeing any hands. And the last item on tonight's agenda is business from the floor. I will ask the clerk to report if there is anyone in the audience who would like to speak under business from the floor.
Yes, Mayor, there is.
Okay, before I ask for comments, I'd like to go over the ground rules. Please be sure to state your name and address for the record. Each person will get 5 minutes. Only comments related to city business are permitted. Comments and remarks that are personal, impertinent, or slanderous and/or disruptive acts are not permitted and will not be tolerated. Mask must be worn while making comments to keep everyone safe. The overhead projector will not be available. Email any handouts to governingbody@cityofshawnee.org. Sign the form on the podium when you are done speaking, and I'll ask the first speaker to come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Hello.
Yep, I can hear you.
Hi, I'm Debbie Detmer at 10816 West 64th Terrace in Shawnee, Kansas here. First of all, I'd like a clarification. Did you say that there wasn't going to be a Shawnee Days?
That is correct, but the city of Shawnee is not in charge of Old Shawnee Days.
Do you know why they canceled it?
I do not.
Okay, and because I know the new order is we can have those now. Okay, well, and the other thing is, were you concerned about 50% of the people being at the pool? Was that part of the pool thing? Because that's not in this last amendment either as of March 25. They pulled all those out, all your, the limiting mass gatherings was taken out, and the 50 people or 50% was all taken out. The 2,000 people at an event, you can have more than that now. And then I could say prohibiting the fairs, the festivals, the carnivals, the parades, all those similar events was taken out. And of course, the gyms was opened up, and recreational and youth organized sports, games, and practices. But I just wanted to clarify that because I wanted to make sure it wasn't something you misconstrued, because I was thinking I heard you say 50% at the pool. You were worried about that restriction, and that restriction doesn't exist. And, the other thing is, can you tell me who approved this notification that we got here of the Johnson County Public Health Order? The printing of this specific piece of paper?
I am not sure what piece of paper you're.
Can you? She's not here. Well, can you go show her? I'll have him bring you a copy of the paper. You got your copy?
Not here is what she's trying to tell you. She's on Zoom.
No, but the city council can answer this, can't they?
I can take one into them if you'd like.
Yeah, yeah.
No problem.
I'd just like to know who approved it because there's really a big problem with it. Well, I'm waiting for them to read. So does anybody know who approved this letter? To be given out to us and have us sit out here and tell me that exemptions aren't allowed and that I have to show a specific medical exemption paper to somebody, acting like that's what the public health order states. And you can go right to the Johnson County Health Order and mandate, and they do not say that. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm sorry, ma'am. I have no idea what this is. And
Yeah.
we don't, and our policy is we don't comment on non-agenda items, and this isn't an agenda item, so we can get you an answer, but I don't know what this is.
Okay, well, if you can get me an answer, because I mean, it's fraud. It's acting like the public health order states that, and the public health order does not. The public health order states exactly what the county commissioners ordered. Anyway, I want to thank you for your time and be safe.
Thank you. You too. Is there anyone else that would like to comment? Business from the floor.
Yes, good evening. My name is Joanne Atchity. I live at 6514 Bradshaw. For the record, I have been sitting outside in front of City Hall this entire meeting because I identified myself when I arrived as being exempt from wearing a mask. But I was told that if I couldn't prove a medical exemption, that I could not enter the building. This is a public space. This is beyond the pale. Welcome, folks, to Shawnee, the new land of the Jim Crow with the separate but equal. It's 55 degrees out here. We didn't come dressed to sit outside, and we've been sitting outside. Yes, you've accommodated us brilliantly with chairs and a wireless microphone so that we could participate in our city government. This is highly, highly unacceptable. This is utterly ridiculous. And Mayor Distler, for the record, the letter that Ms. Detmer was talking about was presented to us this evening as the justification for our being denied entrance into City Hall this evening. But I've been to the Johnson County Board of Commissioners for weeks on end, and we enter the county government building, and there is absolutely no issue with that because this is a public building that I happen to have every right to participate in business in, as this building is as well. There is absolutely zero justification for the city of Shawnee to have denied me or any resident of Shawnee entrance into this building and into the council chambers this evening. I'm embarrassed on your behalf and ashamed of this behavior. This is unacceptable. I would like to conclude by saying I am sovereign and I will not veil my face for any elected or appointed official. Good evening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that has business from the floor?
No, Mayor.
Okay, if there are no other items, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second?
Motion is made, second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you.